All right, so we've got a pretty interesting deep dive ahead of us today.
Yeah.
You guys sent in this article about a man in Russia who supposedly bled to death
Oh, wow.
after being scratched by his cat. And
Okay.
I have to admit, when I first saw this, I was like, wait, really?
Yeah.
I mean, we love our feline friends, but lethal. It seems a bit out there, don't you think?
It's definitely an unusual case, I think. And the details are a bit murky, but that's what makes it so intriguing, right? We've got this incident, we've got some information about the cat involved, and we've got the medical details about the man all shrouded in a bit of mystery.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little. The article mentions a man named Dmitry Ukhin found dead, and the blame seems to fall on his cat, Styopka. What makes this even stranger is that there are these conflicting accounts surrounding the incident. Some say Mr. Ukhin was looking for Styopka late at night. Why? Was the cat acting out of character? And how could a simple scratch lead to something so serious?
Yeah, those are the million-dollar questions. And to really understand this, I think we need to look at it from a few different angles. Let's start with what we know about Mr. Ukhin. The article mentions he had diabetes and some issues with blood clotting.
Now, I'm no doctor,
Sure.
but those sound like some pretty serious conditions. Could those have played a role in all of this?
Absolutely. You see, diabetes can really slow down the body's ability to heal wounds, and it makes people more susceptible to infections. And when you throw a blood clotting disorder into the mix, even a small cut can lead to excessive bleeding that's difficult to control.
So theoretically, even a minor scratch from Styopka could have had far more severe consequences for Mr. Ukhin than for someone in perfect health.
Exactly. It's like a chain reaction. The initial injury might not seem like much, but those underlying health conditions could have amplified the severity, making a bad situation much worse.
Okay, so we've got a possible explanation for how a seemingly minor scratch could turn deadly.
Yeah.
But what about Styopka? Why would a house cat, presumably well-fed and cared for, lash out so violently?
That's where things get really interesting. We often think of our feline companions as cuddly and domesticated, but they still have those primal instincts lurking beneath the surface.
So even a house cat could turn into a mini predator if the situation called for it.
Precisely. It's all about survival instincts. If Styopka felt threatened or cornered, his natural reaction would be to defend himself. And in the cat world, that means using those claws.
All right, let's dive into those claws for a second. Are we talking like tiny daggers here? Just how sharp are these things?
You're not far off with the dagger analogy. Cat claws are incredibly sharp and curved, designed for hunting, climbing, and of course, self-defense. They're made of keratin, the same stuff as our fingernails, but much more finely honed. And remember, cats keep those claws razor sharp by scratching on various surfaces. It's a natural instinct for them.
Okay, so we've got a man with some serious health conditions and a cat with super sharp claws. But this still doesn't fully explain what went down right. We still need to figure out what might have triggered Styopka in the first place.
You're absolutely right. That's the piece of the puzzle we're missing. And unfortunately, the article doesn't give us a ton to go on.
Well, this is where I think things get really intriguing. We're talking about a lack of clear evidence, conflicting accounts, and a whole lot of unanswered questions. It's like a true crime mystery, but with a feline twist.
I like the way you think. And I have a feeling this deep dive is about to take a turn for the even more fascinating.
I can't wait. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's take a step back and try to see things from Styopka's perspective. What could have been going on in that little feline brain to lead to such a tragic outcome?
That's a great question. And to answer it, we need to delve a bit deeper into the world of cat behavior and psychology. So imagine you're Styopka. It's late, you're out exploring your territory, maybe chasing a moth or two, feeling pretty good about life.
Okay, I'm Styopka, the king of the night ruler of my domain.
Yeah.
I like where this is going.
Exactly. You're in your element, feeling confident and independent. Suddenly, out of the darkness, your human appears.
Now, I'm guessing this isn't part of the usual routine. Cats are creatures of habit, right?
You're right on the money. Cats thrive on routine, and unexpected disruptions can be stressful for them. So here you are, Styopka, enjoying your nightly escapades, and bam, your human scoops you up, breaking your flow and possibly startling you in the process.
Yeah, I can see how that could be a bit jarring. I mean, I don't particularly like being startled either.
Now put yourself in Styopka's paws. He's got super sharp claws designed for hunting and defense. His instinct is to protect himself, and those claws are his primary weapon.
So in that moment of surprise and confusion, could Styopka have instinctively lashed out with his claws not intending to cause serious harm, but simply reacting to the unexpected grab.
It's a very real possibility. We have to remember that cats communicate differently than we do. A scratch, even a deep one, might not be intended as an attack, but rather a way of saying, hey, back off, I'm not comfortable with this.
Okay, so maybe the initial scratch wasn't malicious, but more of a reflexive action. But what about after that? The article suggests Mr. Ukhin bled out from this scratch, which implies a pretty severe wound.
Right, and that's where the lack of information really hampers our understanding. What happened between that initial scratch and the moment Mr. Ukhin was found? Did he try to treat the wound? Did Styopka scratch him again, perhaps feeling even more threatened as Mr. Ukhin reacted to the first scratch?
So we're left with a lot of what-ifs. It's like a giant puzzle with some pieces missing.
Exactly, and without those missing pieces, it's hard to say for sure what role, if any, Styopka's subsequent actions might have played. It's possible the initial scratch exacerbated by Mr. Ukhin's health conditions was enough to trigger a fatal chain of events. Or perhaps there were other factors we're not aware of, other scratches, or even a fall that contributed to the tragedy.
It's almost like we need a feline detective to get to the bottom of this.
I wouldn't mind having that job title on my resume. But in all seriousness, this case highlights the importance of understanding our pets, even the seemingly harmless ones.
Right? I mean, we tend to think of cats as low-maintenance companions, but they're still animals with instincts and needs we need to respect.
Exactly. And those instincts can sometimes lead to unexpected consequences, especially when combined with other factors like underlying health conditions.
So what's the takeaway here? Should we all be wary of our feline overlords?
Not at all. The vast majority of cats are loving and well-adjusted companions. But like any animal, they have their limits, and understanding those limits is key to a safe and harmonious relationship.
So it's all about responsible pet ownership and recognizing that even our furry friends can surprise us sometimes.
Absolutely. We need to educate ourselves about our pets' needs, behaviors, and potential triggers, just as we would with any other animal.
Well, I think we've done a pretty good job of trying to see this from Styopka's perspective. We've explored the possibility that the initial scratch was a fear-based reaction, and we've acknowledged that the lack of clear information makes it difficult to piece together the full story.
Indeed. We've delved into the world of cat behavior, those sharp claws, and the importance of responsible pet ownership. But this case still leaves us with some lingering questions, doesn't it?
It definitely does. Like, what about the bigger picture? What can we learn from this incident beyond the specifics of this one case? Are there any precautions we can take to prevent something like this from happening again?
That's a great point, and I think that's where our deep dive needs to head next. We need to shift our focus from the specifics of this incident to the broader lessons we can learn.
All right, so we've spent some time now trying to understand what went down between Mr. Ukhin and Styopka. We've talked about those razor-sharp claws and the possibility of a fear-based reaction from the cat and the role that Mr. Ukhin's health might have played in all this. But I think it's time to kind of zoom out a bit. What can we as pet owners, and just generally curious folks, what can we learn from this whole situation?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think there are several key takeaways here. First and foremost, this case really highlights the importance of individual health awareness. Mr. Ukhin's pre-existing conditions clearly played a significant role in the severity of the outcome.
Right, and that makes you think how many of us are walking around with underlying health issues that we might not even be fully aware of, things that could make us more vulnerable to complications from seemingly minor injuries.
Exactly. It's a reminder to really prioritize our health, get regular checkups, and be mindful of any conditions that might make us more susceptible to infections or complications from wounds.
So takeaway number one, know your own body and be proactive about your health. Got it. What else?
The second big takeaway is the importance of responsible pet ownership. Even with animals that we consider domesticated and safe, like house cats, we need to remember that they're still animals with instincts and behaviors that we might not fully understand.
All right, we've touched on this before, but it bears repeating. Cats might be cuddly companions, but they're also equipped with those sharp claws and a whole set of primal instincts that can, kick in when they feel threatened or stressed.
Exactly. So responsible pet ownership means understanding those instincts, recognizing potential triggers, and taking steps to create a safe environment for both the pet and the people around them.
So that could mean things like providing appropriate scratching posts for cats, being aware of their body language and knowing how to approach them in a way that minimizes stress and the risk of, defensive reactions.
Exactly. It's all about communication and understanding. And that brings me to our third key takeaway, the importance of critical thinking and avoiding hasty conclusions.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. We live in a world where information spreads like wildfire. and it's easy to jump to conclusions based on sensational headlines or incomplete stories.
Precisely. This case is a perfect example. The initial reports focused on the shocking nature of the incident. Man dies from cat scratch. But as we've explored, the reality is much more nuanced.
Yeah, we've seen that there are many factors at play here, and we'll likely never have the full picture of what happened that night.
Exactly. So the lesson here is to approach information, especially about complex and unusual events, with a healthy dose of skepticism. Ask questions, consider multiple perspectives, and be wary of simplistic explanations.
So in a nutshell, it's all about being informed, responsible, and critical thinkers.
Yeah.
Not just when it comes to our pets, but in all aspects of our lives.
You've summed it up perfectly. This deep dive might have started with a bizarre and tragic incident, but it's ultimately a reminder of the complexities of the world around us and the importance of approaching it with curiosity, caution, and an open mind.
I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We explored the strange case of Mr. Ukhin and Styopka, learned about those fascinating feline claws, and unpacked some valuable lessons about health, pet ownership, and critical thinking.
Indeed. And if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity about the animal world and the often unpredictable interactions we have with our furry companions, I encourage you to check out the resources we've linked in the show notes. There's always more to learn.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought. The world is full of surprises, some delightful, some unsettling. Embrace the wonder, stay informed, and never stop questioning. Until next time.